It goes back to the garden. Think about Adam and Eve. They ate of a forbidden fruit. God said, do not, and they disobeyed, and because of this disobedience, sin entered. The wages of sin is death. And sin is always conceived first. Before it becomes born, before you do anything, sin is already conceived in you. Remember, we're not a sinner because we sin. Being a sinner leads us to sin. So when sin is conceived in us, the ultimate effect of sin over time is whatever you do that we call sin. So when sin was conceived in them, and they ate of the forbidden fruit, their eyes were open. The disobedience led them into sin. And then God, walking in the garden in the middle of the day, says, Adam, where are you? And remember, they were hiding, and they hid themselves with the leaves, trying to hide their nakedness. And then God said, who told you you were naked? In other words, the sin reveals to you who you really are. Sometimes we don't know that we're a sinner until something happens. And we say, where'd that come from? We're innocent about sin until it really happens. Is that how we are? Sometimes it's just me. Sometimes we pretend like we are without sin and we're sinless. And then something happens. We wonder, where did that come from? It came from within us. When he said, Adam, where are you? He wasn't talking about where he was in the location, but just, do you know where you really are in your place with me? Because sin separates us from God. Whenever you sin, you don't do it in the presence of God. You don't do it in church. In fact, church is the safest place you can be. Yeah. I mean, it's almost like spotless when it comes to sin. But as soon as we walk out those doors, that's where sin creeps upon us. So again, in the presence of God, there is no sin. But when we separate ourselves from God, that allows sin to take place. So whenever you find yourself distancing yourself away from church, away from the word, away from prayer, you're inviting sin to show up. Because God is light. You don't sin in the light. You sin in the darkness. And the only way that you can really get into the darkness, you got to draw away from the light. So that you withdraw from the light, you'll find that sin just finds you. It just happens. People are caught up in it. It goes to a whirlwind of sin, but they refuse oftentimes to come to the light because the light exposes. It exposes the sin. And in physicians' offices, when they take x-rays, they have to develop those x-rays, and they go into a dark room to develop those x-rays, or develop film even. And when you develop film, you have to do it in the darkness. And those film are developed from something that's called negatives. And those negatives develop in darkness. All of our negatives develop in darkness. Every aspect of our life that we're living with that's not right develops somewhere in darkness. And the only thing we have to do is expose it to light. But sometimes we enjoy a little darkness, don't you? A little darkness is okay. Is that right? Just shake your head. Yes, Pastor. A little darkness is all right. It's all right. We allow ourselves a little bit of darkness. Come on, not everybody's going to be light, Pastor. Come on now, Pastor. Yeah. So we allow ourselves a little bit of light. The problem with a little bit of light is it doesn't remain a little bit. Eventually, it creeps into other areas of our lives. A little darkness is like something that's conceived in us, like sin conceives. And ultimately, the wages of sin is death. So when sin comes in, sin's desire is to kill, is to destroy. So whenever we invite sin, we're inviting that little bit. We want to control it, but we want it there because it's gratifying. But if sin had its way, sin would eventually start to metastasize and go throughout ourselves and start to destroy everything about your life. But it starts with one innocent little area that we're hiding and that we're concealing, and soon it moves into other areas and it starts to envelop and encroach and take over our whole life. And that's the problem with sin. We can't have a little bit. It's impossible to have a little bit of sin in your life because sin will ultimately try to find its way and start to develop and permeate and take over our lives.